this computer. All right, so welcome everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today to really, with you, kick off the Electric Truck Research and Utilization Center. Our project is called eTruck, but it's for the California Energy Commission's Research Hub for Electric Technologies and Truck applications. What we're looking to do here is advance high-powered charging technology along zero-emission freight corridors in California and beyond. And we're really looking forward to evaluating important opportunities of working with you to design the technology, deploy the technology, and really build the first of its kind zero-emission freight corridor in California, and how we can replicate that beyond the state of California. My name is Alicia Gildy, and I'm a vice president here at CalSTART. I oversee our Clean Fuels and Infrastructure program, and this is one of the projects I'm most honored to work with the EPRI team with a number of other partners, including, of course, the California Energy Commission and our partners with the Southern California Edison. And we've got several dozen other stakeholders that we're working with more intimately on this project, but we're going to get into why we brought you to this meeting today and what exactly we want to do to really encourage your participation and empower your leadership as we're moving this technology forward and really supporting that transformation to a zero-emission transportation future. So let's go to the next slide, Nate. All right, just a housekeeping. We're recording this webinar. You all are very familiar with Zoom. I established this as a meeting to make it more interactive and make it easier for folks to unmute themselves and participate in discussion. So it's a bit more casual. This isn't a webinar. I wanted this to be more of an engaging opportunity for everyone to feel comfortable to partake in the discussion. And by participating in today's meeting, hopefully you guys consent with the idea that we're recording this. All right, great. So I've introduced myself, and I would really love the opportunity for you all to get to know the team that's going to be leading this project and moving it forward. And perhaps if it's all right, I would love to start off with our California Energy, our Commission Agreement Manager, Ben Wender. If you want to go ahead and start things off with team introductions, that would be great.
He's charting now. We're going to see the charter screen. So,
Sure.
yes.
Jump in. My name's Ben Wender, and excited to be the Commission Agreement Manager for this project. CalSTART and EPRI put together a really great team, and key to the success of this work will be gathering insights and expertise from the various advisory committees. Really looking forward to a good discussion. Who else from CEC is on? Maybe I'll pass it to Liette quickly.
Yeah, good morning, good afternoon, everyone. This is Leah with the California Energy Commission. I'm in the Renewable Innovation team over at the Research and R&D division. Here to support this project. Really looking forward to the conversation that will be taking place today. Thank you.
Okay, that's it for us. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Ben. Thanks, Liette. Great to have you guys on with us. And if I can just kindly ask everyone to mute your mics. And then, of course, during discussion, when you introduce yourself, we'll want you to unmute. But thank you for your understanding there. All right, well then let's go ahead to the EPRI team. I will start off with our principal investigator for EPRI, Mark Duval, if you want to introduce yourself.
Should have been yesterday, right?
Yeah.
Sorry there. Mark Duval, Director of Electrification and Customer Solutions at EPRI. Welcome, everyone.
Yeah, and Watson Collins here. Nice to see everybody. Senior Technical Executive with EPRI. Nice to see everybody. And Andra. How about, okay, I think that's it from our end.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, EPRI team. Appreciate you guys. All right. Well, then I have some great colleagues that are also participating in today's kickoff call for the Industry Technology Advisory Committee meeting. Yasna, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yes. Good afternoon. Is it afternoon? I'm actually in Europe, so I'm losing track of times. Apologies. Jasna Tomic here, Vice President at CalStart, and I oversee some of our demonstration, testing, validation work. So this is a project very, very close to me and very exciting. So happy to be here and happy that we have such a good participation today. And Kevin Walkowitz.
Hey everyone, Kevin Walkowitz. I'm our Senior Director for the Truck and Off-Road Initiative here at CalStart. And yeah, excited to be part of the team and figure out how to charge these very large battery packs on these trucks that are going to be rolling out in the next few years. So glad to be on the team. Thank you, Alicia.
Thanks, Kevin. All right. Nate, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure, thanks, Alicia. Nate Fernandez here, Technical Project Manager at CalStart on the Clean Fuels and Infrastructure team alongside Alicia.
Great. And Nate's going to be working with me today, team, with the slides and taking real-time notes as we're engaging in conversation. And he's my partner in crime on this project. So Nate's definitely a great go-to. And another great go-to is Blair, who joined us recently. Blair, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, thanks, Alicia. Good morning, everyone. Blair Schlechter, Deputy Director, Innovative Infrastructure Partnerships at CalStart, and I'm brand new with the organization. Excited to be here and working on the project, and look forward to getting to know all of you.
Thanks, Blair. All right, and then I just want to check to see real quickly if we have any of our partners from Southern California Edison, if they would like to introduce themselves.
Hey there, this is Jordan Smith with SCE, and I'm the lead engineer for the e-truck program for SCE.
Great. Thanks, Jordan. Great to have you on here. I don't know if Hugo is on as well. All right. Well, thank you, team and partners, for the opportunity to introduce to you all the great folks that are going to be leading this project and charging ahead, working in partnership with you. I think what we would like to do now is set the stage. You know, what is this project about? Give you a nice overview, and then we're going to get into the specifics on the project, and then in particular, the role of the Industry Technology Advisory Committee and why we called you to this meeting today. So let me hand it over to my good partner, Watson at EPRI, to give us a project overview.
Yeah, no, great. Thanks, Alicia. Yeah, no, we feel blessed with this project because it's alignment of a lot of different things. It's a great opportunity. Like this is such a great objective we're going after, that I'm really excited about the opportunity and what we're doing around trying to create this research hub and accelerating these medium and heavy duty vehicle markets here for electrification. So it's a great opportunity. We've got a really, partnership here is really deep here. We have EPRI collaborating very deeply with CalStart, with the CEC, with Southern Cal Edison, with some universities and other partners that we'll talk about later in this project. So it is a great partnership that's assembled, but it's also, one of the objectives that we see here is we want to create this collaborative environment here. So that's the other thing that's really great about this project is that this isn't intended to be done in the silo. All the work that we're doing here is intended to get information, feedback from our technical advisory committee, our industry technical advisory committee, our workforce committees. It's all intended around connecting and listening and integrating that into the effort. And so it's quite a unique scope that we have too with this project, because it's not just, it's a collaboration, which is important. It's about developing a plan. So we're going to develop a plan that's really important. It's about advancing the charging infrastructure, the hardware development, and the technologies that go on there, and demonstrating all those things. So it's bringing all those pieces together. And that's the secret sauce in this project is that it brings all those pieces together. It's not just a planning activity. It's not just a a series of engagements and collaboration. It's bringing all those pieces together to move this forward. So again, as you hear, it's focused on the medium and heavy duty truck electrification. It's advancing those R&D activities. We're going to start with the drayage operations, beginning with the drayage operations in Southern California, Edison, with some of our pilot work. And it's really also making sure that this community engagement and impacted communities are integrated into this process. So again, I'll turn it back to you, Alicia, but really excited about this partnership with this group. We're excited that you're participating in this. We want to hear from you. We want to get your input. We want to get all that integrated into this plan so it's comprehensive and it works for the state of California. And if we can kind of get this going for California, who knows where else we can do this for. So
Watson.
Thanks, Alicia. Yeah.
Thank you so much. That's really great. I really appreciate that. Good overview. And I should also mention, and you saw the term in that overview slide, community first. We have a really wonderful partner in Grid Alternatives who is also participating in today's call, that we're going to work with them to make sure that we are embedding an equity strategy in the center of this project and engaging communities and having them at the table as we're looking at this technology development and transformation along our transportation corridors. It's our communities we want to make sure we're benefiting, and they need to be a part of the decision-making on where we're prioritizing and citing this technology to really help reduce emissions, to help reduce the threat of climate change, and for everyone to be a leader in that space. So we really are bringing the community and making this a community first project. And that's why in every element, and I'm going to quickly go over the activities of this project, we want to make sure that we have a wonderful sounding board across the various stakeholders that are participating in this project. And I will say, just for today's meeting, I had around 46 folks who had RSVP'd that represent utilities, the Public Utility Commission, state agencies. We have technology developers and providers. We have big fleets. We have a number of really great partners, and of course, our Grid Alternative partner and our project team participating in today's meeting. And this is a meeting we're going to want to make sure is reoccurring so that we're regularly keeping touch with you on where this project's going and where we need your input, where we need you to roll up your sleeves and get involved to really support the advancement of the technology we want to deploy, and certainly the goals that we want to meet in terms of really helping the state of California meet its zero emission transportation goals. So the key activities I'm going to outline quickly, and I'm going to work with my team to kind of review a little bit more in detail, just to give you a really good sense of what we're up to and what's going to be keeping us very busy, because there's a number of parallel paths that we're going to be taking. So the first one here, community engagement, workforce development. That's going to be absolutely critical to this project. And we'll get into that in terms of how that's coming together and how, again, we're going to be taking a stakeholder approach as we work with communities, as we look at supporting workforce development. We're going to be focusing on fleet needs and technology maturity assessment. That is actually an activity that we're going to have supported through the Industry Technology Advisory Committee, working with all of you. Advanced high-powered charger system research and development. That's another really important area that we're going to want to work with you all on. There's phase 1 pilot deployment. We're going to share with you exactly where we're going to be deploying this technology. We have 2 sites specifically where we've already have host commitments from really great partners that really want to support and see this project through. Then we're going to talk about developing and really pioneering the first of its kind zero emission freight corridors, what that planning process looks like and what does that entail, so that we can be really thoughtful and proactive in terms of how we're looking at a number of different tools to really help inform that decision making. If I can ask everyone just to mute their mics, I'd really appreciate it. Thank you so much. I'm hearing a little background noise. Phase 2 implementation. All right, that means we're moving beyond Southern California and we're looking throughout the state of California. And of course, throughout the life of this project, we're going to be working with partners not only in the state of California, but around the US and around the globe, so that we can really look at how we're replicating the success of this project. And that's where the technology knowledge transfer activities really comes in. We want to make sure everything we're learning and the tools that we need to develop to really support this transformation, that we're getting them out there on a website, getting them out through workshops and webinars, making sure we have collateral and resources that folks can read to really get them the best practices and the lessons learned to help them with advancing zero emission freight corridors. Next slide, Nate. All right, this is a bit of a busy slide. Don't you worry, everyone. You're going to get copies of the slide deck here, but this kind of captures our project in a nutshell. And that's a difficult thing to do because it's a pretty big project, but I wanted you to see that we have a bit of an ecosystem here that we're trying to support with this project, where we're going to have a number of things happening at one time, but they have to happen at one time because there's so many things that we need to move forward. And again, through our partnerships and through our stakeholder committees that we're establishing for this project, we're looking to achieve all these great activities that we want to move forward. So accelerating the high power truck charging, working on the technology development, both on the charging side, as well as working very closely with our truck OEMs to make sure that we're able to support and be able to demonstrate that high power charge. And then certainly working with our utility partner with Southern California Edison, as well as making sure that we're engaging other utilities, because there's so much we're going to learn around high power charging, what the needs are, and how we're scaling that technology throughout the state of California. We're going to be focusing a lot on corridor planning and development. So if we're looking at how we're going to provide that fast charge for our battery electric trucks, so that we're supporting, just as an example, the drayage market between San Pedro Bay ports to the Inland Empire, what do we need to be thinking about in terms of the most strategic locations to be citing that technology and providing a business model that's user-friendly, that's providing that fast charge, but it's conveniently located along our transportation corridors. We're going to be working with this partnership to determine what those factors are, as well as to start building a heat map where we're going to be working together to cite and identify where those charging needs need to be located to support this industry. Deployment and outreach, we're going to be trying our best as a project team to corral and bring people together around this project to share what we're learning, what we're doing, and how folks can get involved. And this is where creating this committee is very important, because we want you to be directly connected and tied in with us as we're moving this very important project forward. And as we discussed, there's this huge stakeholder community that we're working with, and you can see that on the left side. There's a number of partners that we're going to be working with on this project. And by forming these committees, it really helps us bring people together in a more thoughtful way. We also want to make sure we're not leaving anyone out. So in the process of collaborating with you, who else do we need to be bringing to be sitting around the table as we move this project forward? Next slide. All right, now we'll go into a little bit more detail as the committee work that we're going to be overseeing. There's a lot of stakeholder engagement, but there are deliverables that we're driving out of these activities. There are products we want to make sure we're putting forward. There's strategic planning, technology development, and implementation that is all going to be seen through these different committees. And I'm going to go into a little more detail on that. Next slide. All right, so I'm going to hand it over to Watson to talk a little bit more about the technology design and deployment and fleet needs, as well as talking a little bit more about the high power charging technology itself. So Watson, back over to you.
Great, thanks. So you know, one of the key pillars to this is this accelerating the high power truck charging technologies, and one of the, you know, the capstone parts of that pillar really is this test bed that we're developing with Southern Cal Edison for the, testing the hardware. So we're developing this test center at Southern Cal Edison's Pomona site, where we'll be able to test this hardware at that location, validate it, make sure that we got all the I's dotted, T's crossed, that this is ready for deployment. So that's kind of really exciting part of this. And then we're also, we have a process where we're doing this technology maturity assessment and developing plans to identify gaps and what's needed. And so in this technology maturity assessment, you'll see in the future surveys that we come out with that'll be asking about what's going on with the technology, what's the status of it. We'll integrate that into these plans to understand where the gaps are. And so that's kind of how this is going to work together is there's going to be this concrete thing of like an R&D center, and then we're also going to do this technology maturity assessment activity that you'll hear about. You'll be asked to participate in those activities on that. So on the next slide. Oh, maybe I do I need to talk about the locations, Alicia? Demonstration site locations. So the two demonstration site locations, one is the Travel Centers for America, also out in Ontario, out in the Inland Empire. And so we'll be deploying, we're looking to deploy at that location at the Travel Centers of America, an initial set of hardware that's first tested at the SCE lab. And then we also have a demonstration site that was identified through our proposal process with MHX around the ports. They have a location closer to the ports. So a great mix of partners. Travel Centers of America is Travel Plaza, so it's a great partnership, and really excited that of their interest in this and aggressiveness towards moving forward with it. And then we have a fleet operator down in that has physical property down near the ports that also can serve this public charging need. So again, these sites that we're developing in this plan are public access locations. So on the next slide, I think we talk about what it is we're aiming for this technology. So I know some that are kind of like the kind of people that think through numbers. It's 100 miles of range in less than 10 minutes. If you think through that, that's probably, we're talking about 1.2 megawatts of power level for the truck charging. So that's kind of pushing the technology from where we are today, but that's what the objective is and the targeted level of performance that we have with this infrastructure and infrastructure plan. Open standard connectors, obviously, and for that public access and interoperability. And then we're looking at modular designs. How can we scale this? We want to be, dig once as much as possible. And then a cost objective around $500 a kW for the infrastructure side of things. So that's what we're aiming for on the R&D side, on the technology, and think that we have a glide path towards that, and then we just have to make it happen. That's what this project is about. Back to you,
Watson. Thank you. That was great. All right. And to talk about the corridor planning, Nate, if you want to give a nice overview of what that involves and how we'll be working across our committees, and in particular working with this committee on how we're going to be supporting the effective and thoughtful corridor planning for this project.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Alicia. So I'll be talking about the first of its kind zero emission freight corridor that we're planning in this project. We're going to be identifying site locations to support these battery electric trucks. We're taking a community-driven approach, making sure we understand the needs of the affected communities. And this will involve building a heat map to see how we're prioritizing sites based on user needs and convenient access, major throughput areas for freight volume, grid capacity, and capabilities like DER and on-site storage integration, and whether or not these sites are in disadvantaged or highly impacted communities. And we'll be using this heat map throughout the life of this project to inform the development of this corridor. And the map that you're looking at here on the right of the screen shows some of the work that's already been done here at CalSTAR for the West Coast Clean Transit Corridor Initiative with partners like SoCal Edison to work with utilities to evaluate infrastructure opportunities for zero emission freight movement and to identify charging opportunities for medium and heavy duty vehicles along the I-5 and other major connecting corridors. And with that, I'll hand it over to Alicia to discuss our advisory committees.
Great. Thank you so much, Nate. Yeah, and I'm seeing a lot of you that have joined us today, and I know that we've collaborated on other corridor planning activities or looking at where there's infrastructure gaps along critical California corridors and how we can, through public-private partnerships, support the deployment of that technology. And the example that Nate provided, working in partnership with Southern California Edison, a number of utilities on the West Coast, was a great way of evaluating not only the potential in terms of truck movement, but where we have capacity to support charging. And in this project, we're going to be looking at the opportunities of capacity for high power charging. So this is critical. If we're going to meet our medium and heavy duty zero emission freight transportation goals, we need to make sure we have that ecosystem in place throughout the state. And that's going to take proactive planning and really assessing where we see some ideal and strategic opportunities to support building up that capacity to support zero emission freight goods movement in California. So let's go ahead and talk about the committees. And if we can move to the next slide, Nate, I would love to give you all an overview. I kind of gave you a glimpse of this. We have 4 really important committees that are going to be supporting the work of eTruck RETA. I should share with you that we kicked off successfully with a number of great leaders that we're working with across various sectors to support this project for the Technology Advisory Committee. Now that's going to be the overarching body that is supporting, giving guidance to the project, looking at the goals and objectives, always making sure that we are accountable to our successes and our deliverables, and that we're continuously looking at ways in which we can further advance and further enhance the project, as well as where we might troubleshoot, where we come up against some road bumps along the way. How do we work with the Technology Advisory Committee to make sure that we're bringing in really innovative and thoughtful ideas? So our Technology Advisory Committee is our overarching committee that's going to be supporting and looking at all the various workflows of this project. And then we're going to have these supporting committees, just like the Industry Technology Advisory Committee, what all of you have been invited to participate today. You're going to be part of this cycle or ecosystem of communication and stakeholder engagement as it relates to technology and how we're going to be advancing that technology. So we're going to get into a little bit more what the roles and responsibilities of our Industry Technology Advisory Committee are. There's a lot of good work to be done, and we're excited. That's why we wanted to kick this committee off following our Technology Advisory Committee. But there's 2 other really important committees that I wanted to share with you. As we mentioned early in the presentation, we're taking a community first approach. So we are truly going to keep to that, and we have a dedicated and committed Community First Technology Advisory Committee, where we're working with Grid Alternatives, and they're going to help make sure that we're bringing in community-based organizations, environmental justice organizations, local academia, industry, utilities, fleets, independent owner-operators, to be a part of the process in terms of how do we engage with communities to support the development and advancement of zero-emission freight corridors. And how do we collaborate with them? How do we educate them? How do we present the value, but also understand what their needs are to support the informing of the development of these corridors? And there's just so much work to be done there. And I think it's really great that we've made an intentional goal to work with communities on this project. And that's the work that we're going to be looking to carry out in partnership with Grid Alternatives. To further complement that, we know that we need to build the workforce of the future to support the zero emission transportation future that we are creating together. But there's a lot of work to be done there, and there's an opportunity to create local economic development opportunities to really empower our local communities, those communities that are living nearby these freight communities, to have an opportunity to play a role in the industry and to support building out that workforce. So we're going to have a dedicated workforce development committee where we're going to be working not only with our community partners, with our local academia, but we want to work with you. We want to work with our utilities and our technology providers, our fleets. What support, what maintenance, what deployment, what operational needs can we be supporting? And how do we empower growth growth of job opportunities locally in Southern California, but throughout California. And then how do we create this model that we can then replicate beyond the state of California so that others can really be working with communities, working with academia, working with industry, working with state government to create those job opportunities, to support the workforce development needs that are there, that exist to support this industry. So that's another very intentional goal of this project, where we're going to be working with many partners, including partners like you, to support the workforce development activities. So you can see we have quite a number of really meaningful opportunities of connections and connecting points throughout this project and regularly throughout this project to make sure that we're meeting our goals and we're always thinking bigger and better, that we're working with our industry partners to make sure that we're thinking smart about technology design, deployment, and corridor planning, that we're engaging our communities to be a part of the process, to have a voice in the process, and we're supporting the workforce development to truly help make this transformation and making sure that we're creating job opportunities for our communities so that they could be a part of advancing this technology and creating that cleaner future for their own communities and certainly for the state of California and beyond. So hopefully that gave you a nice overview of the committees that we're going to be working with throughout the life of this project, and that we're excited to work with you on. So as you learn about these, please express interest in other committees that you might be interested in, because we'd love to engage you. We would love to be working with you on them. All right, so let's get to the bottom of this committee and what we're going to be doing as partners and why we're seeking your collaboration and your input. And I'm going to tell you, it's going to require rolling up the sleeves a bit and getting to work on some things. So I'll talk a little bit about how we're going to be creating subcommittees where we have maybe a number of folks, maybe not the entire group, but where we're working together more closely on some very set tasks and deliverables that are really important to this project. So we'll get into that. All right, so goals for the Industry Technology Advisory Committee. We want to develop and validate high power charging technology for zero emission trucks. And we want to help inform statewide expansion of high power charging along our key corridors. We want to work with you to do that. What are some of our objectives? We want to make sure through the ITAC, we are guiding overall technology development tasks to test and validate the technology. And we have teams that are going to be supporting the boots on the ground validation and testing and data collection for this project. But we want to make sure we're getting your input into that process. We're going to be demonstrating these technologies. Watson shared the 2 site locations where we're going to be deploying the technology. So we want to make sure that we're creating a real world setting for demonstrating these technologies to make sure it works, make sure that we're troubleshooting and making that technology better and perfecting it so that we can really scale it and help commercialize it. We also want to support preparation of a fleets and technology maturity assessment framework. And that is something we're really important that we want to work with you all on. And this is a particular activity that we're going to set aside to work with a number of you on. So we'll get into a little more detail on that. But we see this as this TAC, the ITAC, we see 3 core functions of this group, where we're going to be meeting a little bit more regularly in more of a subcommittee fashion, but we're going to be bringing this group together quarterly to give you an update on how we're progressing in terms of overall goals and objectives and the activities that we're carrying out, how it relates to you, how it brings value to you, as well as the value we seek from you to make sure that we are working together to advance this technology. So the 3 functions. First one is the Fleet Needs and Technology Maturity Assessment Framework. Number 2, technology development. Number 3, corridor planning. So now I'm going to break it down a little bit more for you just to give you an overview of what those 3 functions entail and how we're going to want to work with you. All right, so the first function number 1. Our strategy here is we want to make sure that we're working with you to review the goals, the scope, and the content of this assessment, of this Fleets and Technology Maturity Assessment Framework. We want to work with you to inform that process. We want to describe relevant truck market segments in coordination with all of our regional planning partners. So we want to work with you on what segments do we want to make sure that we're benefiting with this technology. What do we need to keep in mind in terms of their vocational needs, their operational needs, their location needs, their business model needs, as we're developing this state-of-the-art technology and the business model around public charging. We also want to make sure that we're viewing project partner data So what do we need to make sure that we're informing this tool? What is the type of metrics we want to be following, as well as the data we want to be capturing, and how we're going to interpret that data? What value is that going to support in terms of our decision-making and our planning of this project? As well as identification of geographic boundaries and local prioritization of public charging corridors. Nate mentioned to you that we are going to be developing a heat map to really support our working together to apply various elements that we want to be tracking, whether it's truck movement, fleet turnover, grid capacity, throughput of vehicles, where we know it's convenient for truck, the drayage market, to make sure that we're putting publicly accessible charging locations, where we're impacting disadvantaged and low-income communities. So applying all these different layers of data to really help inform where we need to be strategic in terms of locating that high power charging. So this heat maps can be really important. We're going to be putting it on a public website so that everyone has access to this tool, so that it can help inform their respective projects that they might be working on as it relates to infrastructure deployment and corridor planning. We also want to make sure that we're evaluating our engagement with our partners to make sure that we are being thoughtful and bringing the right partners to the table. We're not leaving anybody out, and we're getting your ideas and we're getting your input. And of course, we want to make sure, like I said earlier, that equity is at the core of the project, that we are making sure that we're sharing with all of you our community engagement strategy and equity plan as it relates to the entire project. So that's function number one. Let's go on to function number two. Technology development. All right, so we need to evaluate, working with you, evaluate barriers and solutions to high power charging technology development and deployment. We also need to work with you to develop specifications on high power charging needs and electric truck capability. That's why we need both our infrastructure providers, our truck OEMs, and our truck fleets. We need to work with you on this very important element, because we need to make sure it's all communicating and it's all working together. We also want to develop requirements for high power charging technology development, vendor and partner solicitation. So part of this working with all of you is we want to develop a solicitation of which you might even respond to be a part of actually designing that technology. But we want to work with this committee to help inform what do we need to make sure, as we're looking at this potential vendor, that we're meeting the requirements for successful technology development, and that experience and that ability to drive that innovation is there. We want to work with you on that. Last one here, evaluate optimization opportunities for resilient, high power electric charging ecosystem. All right, we are in California. We experience blackouts. We are experiencing climate change. It's getting even more intense every single year. We need to look at how we're creating a resilient ecosystem. What does that mean? What are the various technology elements in terms of building that renewable grid and supporting a fully zero emission high power charging technology system? How do we support our goals across the state to be resilient as we're looking at building these high power charging needs? So we want to work with you on that as well. Function number three, let's go on to the next slide. And this is the last slide. And this is really fun. This is one of the things I'm most passionate about, and that is corridor planning. And that is working with all of you on, okay, we know where we need to be deploying technology to make sure that all these trucks that are on our roads, they have convenient access to high powered charging. We also need to make sure we're working with our truck fleets to help them make this transition, and knowing that they have reliable charging is going to be absolutely important. But there's so many elements of consideration that we need to keep in mind. And that's what we want to do in terms of working with you. One, as we're developing this heat map, what are all the things that we want to be monitoring for? What are all the tools that we're going to want to build into this heat map to help us identify and prioritize site locations? But how do we work with you? What commitments might we even empower through this partnership to support the build out of those zero emission freight corridors? And that's another very important element of this project that we want to be working with you on. Now, I've just reviewed the three functions, and what I want to share with you is we realize that we're not going to accomplish that on every quarterly meeting. It's going to take maybe getting together a bit more and maybe with a more intimate group. So what we're going to want to do is hear from you, and I'll be reaching out, and even during our discussion today, want to hear from you. What excites you about this project? What are some of the functions that you would like to support? Now, we might be reaching out to you anyway, but it would be really great to just hear from you firsthand what really interests you about this partnership, what interests you about this committee, and where exactly you can be playing a role. And then how can we make sure that this project is bringing value to you? We want to make sure that, you know, as much as we're going to be heads down and working on a number of different moving parts, we want to make sure that we're bringing as much value to our partners that are participating and supporting this project. It has to be a two-way street. We need to make sure that we're both learning from each other, both growing together as we're advancing this high-powered technology, as well as building out these zero-emission freight corridors of the future. So with that, I would love to go into some discussion. And this is where I'm going to invite our partners to feel free to just participate, unmute yourself, raise your hand. I'm going to try to facilitate kind of keeping an eye on who's participating, who's got their hand up. If it gets quiet, don't be surprised if I call on you. I know a number of you there in our partner list here, so I might call on you just to get your perspective. But we've organized some questions that we wanted to put out there just to get a sense of what you think about this project, what this project means to you. But before we do that, maybe Nate, let's go back to that other slide. I want to see if there are any questions that any of our partners might have on any of the content that we shared today, any of the slides that our team members presented on. Let's break for a moment and see if we have any questions that folks might have. Let me see if I see any hands raised. And if not, that just means we were so thorough. You've got it all down. I'm teasing. We're also recording this, and we'll make sure that we're providing the slides to everyone so that you can spend a little more time chewing on them, because I know this is a lot of information. There's a lot we're trying to drive. Sabu, I will call on you, my friend. I see that your hand is raised. Please go ahead.
Yeah. What's the timeline are we looking at to do this? Up and running.
Maybe what I'll do is Watson or Mark, if you guys want from the EPRI standpoint, give a nice overview of the timeline of the project. As we presented to you, there's a couple phases of this project. So let me hand it over to Watson if you want to. I see you unmuted yourself.
Oh, sure. Yeah, great. Yes. So the overall timeline for the RETA project in this phase one part is through, I think it's early 2025. Is that timeline. Now, some of these parts have shorter timelines, and you know, again, since a lot of times I describe this project as there's multiple projects inside of this Uber project. And so some of those things have their own timelines, like the demonstration sites. We're looking to get them complete and constructed over the next 12 to 18 months. So that has its own timeline, and the lab will be complete in its own timeline. But the overall effort goes through 2025 timeline.
Thank you.
Thank you, Watson. Eleanor, please go ahead.
Thanks, Alicia. Hi, everyone. I'm curious about these other committees and would, you know, over time appreciate visibility into who's members of them. You know, just I think there's a potential for further collaboration there between the committees as well. So is that something that you all will be able to share?
100%. I will tell you, Eleanor, we are in the process of putting together a really nice website that's going to be growing throughout the growth of this project, because there's so many different kind of work streams that we're going to be working on. But what's really important to us is visibility into these committees and who's collaborating in these committees, as well as what's coming out of these committees. So absolutely happy to share the partners that are going to be participating in each of these committees. We want to give visibility to their leadership and participating in this project. And we're going to be making sure that we're tracking as we're building this website, currently building this website. For each meeting, we're going to be making sure that we're capturing all the recorded meetings, all the meeting minutes that come out of the meetings, the partners that are participating in those committees, as well as what our timeline is and any upcoming events or workshops that we're going to be carrying out. So we want to make sure that that information is fully transparent, fully visible for others to be able to see and take advantage of in terms of collaboration opportunities, to your point, Eleanor.
That's great to hear. Thank you, Alicia. And for Grid Alternatives, I know that organization and they do a lot of different things. Did you say that here initially their focus is on the workforce development, or could you speak to that a little more?
So yeah, I can talk a little bit to that. And I also have some of my great alternative partners on the call with us. So they're going to be really working closely with CalSTART on both the Community Technology Advisory Committee, where we're actively engaging with communities to support the goals and objectives of this project, and how we can create a model for engagement with communities on zero emission freight and zero emission freight planning as it relates to corridor development, but also working with Grid closely on the workforce development activities. So we felt it was really critical that we worked with an equity partner that has boots on the ground experience of developing the capacity in these areas, with really great experience and relationships and thoughtfulness that we may not be thinking about. And that's why bringing on Grid Alternatives is wonderful, because they really have a lot of experience in the clean energy space and now in the clean transportation space. And so we're lucky to have them. Maybe I can ask Eleanor, sorry, I can ask Stella, if you are on with us, my friend, if you wanted to share a few thoughts, would love your perspective in terms of Grid's role in supporting the two committees that you'll be supporting us on.
Absolutely. Good morning, everyone, and thank you, Alicia. And we're so excited to be part of this effort. As Alicia mentions, we have been involved in a number of outreach and engagement efforts throughout Southern California. And so a lot of the partners or potential partners that we've identified, we're already working with them, whether it's on solar energy, battery storage, charging station installations. We're also working, Eleanor, on resilience centers throughout LA County. And so I guess my point is we have some very strong relationships with the folks, nonprofits, community-based organizations, and city departments. So we believe that, just being part of this effort, that we're going to be able to help bring in community members and make sure that there's an equitable engagement effort through this process. Thank you.
That's awesome and great to hear. Thanks, Stella.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Watson, you have your hand up.
Oh, great. So Eleanor, I recognize one of the values in participating in a group like this is a lot of times is the discussions you may have, walking into the meeting or in a break in a meeting if we met in person, and so some of those side discussions you may have with the group that we're collecting here. Let us know if you have any thoughts about meeting in person and opportunities to do that. I know it's kind of harder nowadays. I mean, and we're trying to find the right events and situations where there's enough people in a similar location. But if there's any ideas on how we can kind of make that happen, please let us know, because we do kind of want to make sure that this is a win-win for you, for the project, for the objectives of the project, and for the industry. So we do want to create those kind of opportunities.
Oh, thank you, Watson. Yeah, I think we're all part of this massive social experiment of trying to figure out what's next, and I'm of course very eager to for a project like this, of course, to be in person. I saw the CalSTART team at the ACT Expo last month, and that was such valuable time with them. So happy to help, happy to give input there about when we could do that and how we could do it safely. So thanks for bringing that up.
Thanks, Watson. Thanks, Stella. Thanks, Eleanor. Great question. And excited to work with you. All right, well, if there's no other questions, we do have some questions for you, and I do want to keep an eye on time for our call today. I think we're actually doing pretty good here, but I also want to respect everyone's busy schedules. I know we called a 90-minute meeting just so that we have enough time to kind of get through the content of this project. to really walk through it with you, but also to get your input and to get your observations in terms of what you think of this project and what value it can bring to you. So maybe let's go ahead and get into the discussion portion. And Nate, I understand, my friend, you're going to be taking some real time notes, which you're wonderful and you're really good at that. And I appreciate you. So let me just quickly go over the questions that we wanted to highlight with you, and not that we need to stick to them in perfect order, but really we would love to kind of get a sense from you all, from your company or agency, or organizational goals and objectives. How does this align with what you're working on in terms of what we've outlined of this project, and in particular, the goals and objectives and activities that we're going to be carrying out through this committee? And then why is this project important to you? We would love to hear that. We know this is an important project. We all believe it's pretty important, but it would be really good to know why it might be really important to you, so that maybe as we're hearing from you, we might better understand how we can be working together with you and making sure that we're tapping you for the things that are important to you. So with that, let me see if we have any volunteers before I do my fun Socratic method of just calling on people. Anybody want to go first?
Sure, I can go first. Hi, everybody. I'm not sure if I know that many people on the call. My name is Ryan Sklar. I work at NG Impact. NG, in a larger sense, we are essentially a big utility in France, but in the US, we're actively engaged helping clients figure out electrification challenges. So anyway, just a little bit of background there. But from our perspective, we've worked with several clients that are really interested. These are, big consumer goods manufacturers, or somebody else who has either direct fleet or third-party fleet. They're trying to kind of crack this electrification challenge, and it's been really hard to do for vehicles that travel more than 50 to 100 miles a day. And so I think a lot of what we've gone over the last hour is geared not towards just the first and last mile, but especially with the corridors work, some of those medium to long-term range classic electric truck challenges. And so that's kind of what makes me the most excited about some of the goals and objectives of this work, and why I think it could be really important. And so I have a lot more I could potentially say, but I know we have a busy crowd, so I'll keep it there.
Well, Ryan, we're going to want to make sure we come back to you. That's a really great start, and wonderful to have your partnership. So thank you for being here today. Maybe I see Robert, your hand went up next. Robert Underhill.
Hi, thank you. Yes, it's Robert Underhill with Microgrid Labs. We provide planning and control software for electrified fleets. This is definitely, sort of, as Ryan alluded to, adding the ability to extend trips, extend that charging is critical to enabling further electrification. This helps enable some additional business of ours in that, as these corridors go up, there becomes an increased need for planning additional trips and extended trips and types of fleets that are not currently electrified. So it's a very exciting project, and I'm very excited to get to know everyone on this committee. Thank you.
Robert, great to have you. Thank you so much. I really, really appreciate that. Looking forward to working with you. All right, Suresh, I'll go over to you. I see your hand is raised.
Thank you, Alicia. Appreciate it. Good day, everybody. My name is Suresh Jayanti. I'm with NextEra Energy Resources, focused on the mobility and mobility infrastructure across US and Canada. This is a strategically significant project for us. We recently announced a major initiative with partner Daimler and BlackRock Capital to create a nationwide infrastructure corridor for medium and heavy duty vehicles. So synergizing with this group and understanding best practices and the technology roadmaps and market drivers is of high value to us.
That's great, Suresh. Thank you so much. Well, we're looking forward to working with you on this, and glad that it aligns with your business objectives. Jesse, great to see you. I'll hand it over to you, my friend.
Hi, thanks. I'm Jessie Denver, and I'm the Senior Manager of Transportation Electrification at East Bay Community Energy, and we are the public power provider in Alameda County and in the city of Tracy and San Joaquin County here in Northern California in the San Francisco Bay Area. And we are leading a California Energy Commission medium and heavy duty goods movement blueprint, which CalSTART is our partner on. So it's important to us to be engaged in this process. And thank you for asking us to be a part of this group so that we can stay up to date on the lessons learned and best practices of what's being developed and implemented in Southern California, and take those and deploy them here in our service area. We're also the only Northern California member of the statewide TEP, which is very much focused on Southern California, and your colleagues down there at Lacey lead that. So, similarly, we're engaged in the TEP so that we can take lessons learned and relationships from Southern California and be able to leverage those here in Northern California.
Jessie, thank you so much. And I think that's a really important point. And thank you so much for highlighting the blueprint, because I know there are a number of blueprints, and I think this is a great partnership example of how we're taking into account some of the planning activities that are occurring with these blueprints and how that can support kind of this network of charging along our transportation corridors and certainly near our urban centers, but also in our rural communities to really support that ecosystem. So leveraging those blueprints that are, being conducted throughout the state, I think is going to be really important. So we're so fortunate to be working with you on that project, and so glad that you're going to be participating in this partnership with us as well. So thank you, Jessie. All right, I see Sabu, and I don't know, Shares, if that's a legacy hand, but I'll come back to you. Sabu, if you want to ask your question, my friend, or your comment. Oh, and you might be muted.
Thank you. So I'm Sabu Armugam. I'm Senior Product Manager at Volvo Trucks North America, responsible for charging and infrastructure. So my key point was, I think it's good on the charging corridor. I think the key point is the resiliency, as you mentioned earlier. So that is way more important, I think, because especially considering how many vehicles depend on having power to support it, and all the other things that's happening in California related to high winds, fires, and other things. So it needs to have resiliency. So that is the key portion that is going to sustain the customers, because flights need charging every day to get things moving along. So we cannot have a downtime. So this resiliency is going to be an interesting factor to look forward to.
Thank you, Sabu. Great to meet you. Thanks for being here. All right, and then if I can maybe ask for a fleet perspective, would love to understand how this might be an important project to you. And I know, Eleanor, you've already been participating, but if you wanted to chime in here, it's great to have a fleet's vantage point into this project as well. So would love that perspective in terms of the value this can be bringing to fleets.
Absolutely. Thanks, Alicia. And I know there's probably other fleets on here that have a other perspective to share, but I'll say for Amazon, we really see this project as enabling our net zero goal in 2030. So that net zero is our goal to deliver 50% of Amazon shipments with net zero carbon. So that's right around the corner. And this initiative is sort of a way for us to learn really fast and then be able to scale efforts to develop, clean transportation, not just in Southern California, but across the country and the EU and UK.
Great, Eleanor, thank you so much. All right, any other thoughts before we move on to our next question? We might do a couple more before we relieve everyone. Thanks for your time again. Tom, go ahead.
Well, thanks, Alicia, everyone. Just want to sort of add on to a little bit of what's been said, including on the fleet side. Shell Recharge Solutions is supporting a number of fleets and is also engaged in a number of regional efforts. And just want to acknowledge that really to electrify certainly the on-road drayage fleet in California, and particularly Southern California. This just really requires an all hands on deck approach. So really appreciate the leadership of the partners who put this application together, and certainly then appreciate the opportunity to be engaged and have a larger kind of sphere of partners and stakeholders involved in this ongoing work. And just want to acknowledge that, fleets need public charging, public truck charging. There is an extreme dearth of that. And while my company will certainly be helping develop a lot of that going forward, again, all hands on deck. So really appreciate this effort.
Tom, thank you so much. You're always so great partner. Really appreciate you. All right, well, really wonderful responses. Thanks for sharing why this project is important to you and how it aligns with the great work that you're up to. We look forward to working with all of you. So thank you so much. Maybe Nate, if we can go to our next question. Yeah, this is a good one. This might be an easy one for a number of you, maybe all of us. We just need to develop high fire charging and make sure it's successfully deployed. But all right, but I want to hear from you. What does project success, and you've heard the number of different elements that we're looking to move forward. Would love to hear from you. What does project success look like in your mind? Tanner.
Yes. Hello. Thank you for putting this together. Really informative. So appreciate it as well. So I'm Tanner Higgins. I'm a principal program manager at Amazon, focusing on our middle mile. And so my specific focus is on zero emission vehicle infrastructure. So this project aligns really well. In terms of success, there's three main things that I look at. One is speeding up the timeline for megawatt capable trucks. I think this project can absolutely do that. Two is developing the real life understanding of how megawatt charging works in practice. So we have assumptions around time to charge, but there's also stem time to and from these locations that will inform mid-route charging that will be important to understand from our vantage point. And then also what technology is needed to support that mid-route charging as well is really important that this can help. And then the third one that I have is around understanding how this impacts subsequent charging strategies across the US. I know that's part of phase 2 here, but I think that will be really important to test and then figure out how do we do this across the rest of the US. So thank you.
Wow, Tanner, that was perfect. Came with 3. I loved it. Loved it. Thank you so much. Really appreciate your input. Those are good successes to be following and seeking. All right. Thank you, Tanner. Other thoughts, other perspectives on success? I think those are pretty good. Do we have a utility partner that we would like to hear from? That would like to share their thoughts on what does success look like? There's a lot of power that we're going to need to get out there. So maybe if it's all right with you guys, I might call on you. I'm seeing Scott Briasco from LADWP. I don't know, Scott, if you want to share your thoughts on what does project success look like from maybe a utility perspective and as a utility partner that would be participating in this committee potentially.
Sure. So yeah, I think from our perspective, you kind of mentioned the blueprint and the grid planning is really kind of critical. Understanding how our customers will charge, how and when, is energy management going to be a part of that process? mean, obviously, we talk about freight. Port of LA is huge for us. So we know there's a big load there. There's there's the advanced clean fleets regulation that's coming. So there are mandates, and we certainly, as the utility, want to be there to obviously support that. But yeah, understanding again, from the utility perspective, kind of getting in front of it, because we do know that there is a timeline associated with getting, large interconnections established. Maybe if we have, we're talking about megawatt charging. So those are big loads when you have multiple chargers of that magnitude at a location. Most likely there are distribution upgrades that are going to be required. So, getting that kind of feedback from the process to help our process, I think, is important.
Thank you, Scott. No, that's really great. You really outlined some really important elements for us to be working hard on. So thank you so much for identifying them and putting them forward. All right, maybe we'll take one more perspective before we go into the next question. I'll just keep us moving along. I think we have 2 more questions that we wanted to get your input on. But maybe if it's all right, Stella, I might ask you to share your thoughts, because as our equity partner and kind of representing the voice of communities, what else should we be thinking about from an equity and community engagement perspective in terms of what success looks like?
Yeah, absolutely, Alicia, thank you. I think for us, engaging communities, making sure that we don't leave anyone behind. We want to share, the good news, because these communities that we're talking about have been impacted by goods movement, by local pollution sources, refineries, et cetera, for many, many years now. And so we want to make sure that these same individuals are part of this effort. We believe that, if there's any type of resistance to change, which there always is, right? Whenever there's some sort of change coming, that we want to be sure to be honest, to be, engaging, to make sure that we're looking at the entire area in an equitable manner. And so, I guess success for us would be like, people, really engaged and involved with this effort, and not having folks come back and say, we didn't know about this. What is this all about? And how is this going to impact us? Will it impact us in a negative manner? And so I think that's what we're trying to keep at the heart of this effort, is to make sure that we manage this this transition for folks in these communities. Hope that makes sense.
Oh, that made a lot of sense. Thank you, Stella. That's wonderful. All right. And Nate, thank you so much for taking these notes. I know it's tricky to make it real time. I've tried and I misspell a lot, so it's a little embarrassing at times, but you're doing a great job. Thanks, Stella. All right, let's move on to our next question. Nate, I don't know if you want to transition to the next. Thank you so much, my friend. Appreciate it. All right. And what are the most important technological or industry related barriers for this project? And I think, Scott, you were talking a little bit about the interconnection and the grid capacity and support, making sure that we have that power available to support the high power charging needs that we need to put in place to support our heavy duty zero emission truck movement along our transportation corridors. What are some of the other barriers that are related to this project that kind of first come to mind? And I mean, we did talk about the speed of getting this technology developed. How can we do it fast enough? But what might be some of those hurdles that we're going to need to overcome so that we can all be keeping an eye on the ball in terms of what we need to anticipate and then work together to develop solutions to overcome those barriers. So maybe I can open it up to the group here on what do you see are some of the most technological and industry related barriers for this project? And I might call on you. We see who have not heard from yet. I love seeing all these folks on here. I really appreciate you being here. Oh, yay, Tom. Okay, Tom, what do you think?
Yeah, so I'll just acknowledge that, you know, sort of from a not necessarily a technology development standpoint, but from a manufacturing readiness standpoint, the industry has a little ways to go in incorporating the megawatt charging standard. And, you know, other aspects of sort of equipment availability for this type of use case. I don't see these as barriers, but do see them as concerns.
Thanks, Tom. Appreciate that. Are there other thoughts on kind of the technology development side of things? Certainly, as we've been evaluating kind of what we need to anticipate to prepare the lab, working closely with Southern California Edison to, you know, think about charging a truck at 1 megawatt, high power charging, all the security and safety concerns around developing a technology of that capacity. There's so many things that we need to be thinking about as it relates to even safety, right? And business models. How do we make sure that we're developing a high power charging, convenient, fast charging at publicly accessible locations along our transportation corridors to support and serve our drayage market, to support our independent owner operators, our small fleets? What are some of the barriers we need to already anticipate to think about how this technology is going to best serve the users and provide that accessibility? Any thoughts or added color to that? And I want to welcome my project team partners as well that are supporting the deliverables of this project. Feel free to chime in and be a part. I don't know. Oh, Jesse, go ahead.
I would add, not on the technology part, but related to technology is what we're hearing through our medium and heavy duty goods movement, workforce development stakeholders, and the fleets who have piloted trucks throughout California is workforce is going to be the key barrier here. And that's not necessarily related to the charging infrastructure and getting that in the ground or the O&M associated with charging infrastructure, but the vehicles themselves and the lack of automotive technicians who have the skill sets to be able to work on the trucks when they break down, to ensure that the fleets and independent owner operators have continuity of business services. We've interviewed some of the fleets up here and they're telling us, hey, we piloted these, but because there's no mechanics to fix the trucks, we've had them down for 2-3 months at a time, and we wouldn't get more at this point in time. And we've met with our community college stakeholders who generally say, hey, we don't have any funding to develop more programs, train our teachers, get applicable computers and software and trucks and other equipment that would even enable us to train new workforce entries or upskill existing entries. And so that is starting to emerge as like a key barrier that we're hearing, that it's going to really kind of influence market acceleration of adoption of these trucks, is the workforce piece. And really making sure from a technological perspective, the workforce training programs have the technologies that they need to be able to train people on, which is connected to sources of funding, which it doesn't sound like most training programs have access to.
These are excellent points. Jesse, thank you so much. And we might pull you into our workforce development committee. Thank you so much. Really, really great points, and you've covered them very, very well. And we're very pleased that one of our core objectives is looking at how this project can help serve and support and empower a larger workforce in California. So how do we set up those enablers to help put those systems and those trainings and those tools and those needs to really support building out that workforce training that's needed, but also how we're connecting people to those opportunities and to those tools, and then how does that might lead them to a job opportunity. So thank you, Jesse. Really appreciate that. Sabu.
Yeah, so for me, I think it's the uptime. Since you're going with the new technology with the megawatt charging system, so we need to make sure that we have a 98% or higher uptime to make it successful so that the fleets can count on it.
Great, thank you, Sabu. That was really good, really important. I have a partner who's reaching out to me via chat, difficulties of raising hand. And we now call you out on it. But my friend Michael with Wave, if you want to share your perspective and your thoughts here.
Sure, happy to. Just want to echo a little bit of what Thomas said about charging standards in general. We've all seen that as being a challenge to adoption. It looks like the focus here is on MCS, but also wanted to make everybody aware, in case they're not, that there's a parallel standard in wireless charging that's evolving quite a bit. There are 500 kilowatt systems under development and also a megawatt that are funded by the Department of Energy. And having an ability to participate in the standards committee, I'd just like to let everybody know, I know some who are on the call already know this well, that they continue to be an evolving scenario. And it's really important for everybody to be aware of it, to make sure that whatever gets adopted in the future is interoperable and scalable.
That's great.
It's also a little bit of a question. Looks like the focus is on MCS, but curious what the thoughts are on also thinking about wireless charging.
Michael, good question. Maybe I'll ask Watson if you want to share your perspective, or any of our team members, Ben or Liette, from the CEC perspective.
Yeah, so Michael, in the solicitation, there was those technical objectives around those power levels. Those weren't made up by the project team. Those are the objectives we had to meet, and so that's what we're aiming for, those technical objectives that are on that slide. So whatever the technology is, it appears that it's MCS, but if there's other things, we let's talk about them and how they would meet those objectives.
Okay, sounds good. The only other comment I would have, Alicia, I'm not sure if this is related to this topic, but is there a plan to be able to measure, since this is a community first program, are you going to measure the emissions reduction and the impact on people in proximity?
That's a really great question. That's not built into the scope of work of this project. We're not going to be conducting air monitoring as it relates to this project. That is a really good thought. I mean, certainly we want to make sure that we're tracking progress in some capacity, how that relates to the project and how we're estimating emission reductions. I think that's an important area for us to evaluate. So thank you, Michael. Robert Underhill, I saw that your hand was up and then it came down real quick. Did you want to share any perspective to this question? Then we'll go on to the last one and then wrap things up.
Yeah, I was just going to say that the predictability for fleets and ensuring that infrastructure is scaled to meet the constantly updated and changing needs of growing fleets, such that they're not showing up to a charging location and having to wait for charging, in addition to the resiliency arguments and other pieces, and making sure that the planning is meeting, what the utility capabilities are in terms of providing the power with what the actual fleets are demanding at that given point. This is going to be a key piece, so that keeping that uptime, sort of like Sabu mentioned, going.
Robert, thank you so much. Really great points. And I will add another barrier that we're already kind of actively working with partners as it affects other projects is, talking about availability of location and identifying site hosts. So we have 2 site hosts that are wonderful partners that are going to be participating in this project. But the challenge will be also identifying other site hosts and how do we broker and bring those partnerships together? How might this project help influence and support the development of those partnerships, and where we would see those ideal locations for charging to provide that accessible charging for our truck fleets. So that is another area that is really important to our team, is how do we broker site host development and partnerships with this project? Eric.
Sure. Hey, Alicia. So yeah, one thing I wanted to just flag was independent owner operators, and them being kind of a distinct class of drivers that we need to ensure we address their unique needs. One of the part of the Blueprint grant up here in Sacramento, the medium heavy duty Blueprint grant funded by the Energy Commission, we found that roughly 17–18% of our fleet vehicles are independent owner operated, and many of them park overnight in a lot of random places that are not necessarily conducive to charging overnight. But there are some places like we did note, like repair yards. As an example, tire, retail tire establishments and things like that seem to be where they do. There seems to be a congregation of these vehicles parked overnight. So in any case, they're kind of a unique category. They're also, tend to be more heavily skewed toward, minorities and an equity community type of issues there. So that's another thing to flag.
Eric, those are great. Thank you so much. And thanks so much for coming back. I know you had to leave us for a second, so we're lucky to have you as a partner. Thank you very much. Wonderful insights and very good points that you've made. Really appreciate it. Well, team, just acknowledging how much time we have left with this call. I know we had one more question, but I think we've shared a lot of really wonderful feedback here, and just wanted to make sure that we're getting some of our important next steps and how we want to be working with you. So I've identified 3 functions that we're going to be supporting through the ITAC, and you're going to be seeing communications from myself, Nate, and Blair, because our team's going to be making sure that we're convening and bringing these wonderful partners together to support these different activities. So we are definitely working to launch all of our e-truck committees, get them off the ground, get them off and running with all of these different goals and objectives that we have for each committee. We are certainly supportive of partners participating across all the different committees. So as we're as we're promoting them, how we make them aware to you, in case you're interested in supporting them, we would love to get your feedback on that, because there's a lot of meaningful work that we're going to be driving through each of these committees. We are going to be working more quickly, though, on the fleet needs and battery electric vehicle truck technology assessment. So we're going to want to kind of bring people together to help support identifying the needs of that framework. And that's going to be a more near-term opportunity. So we want to make sure we're getting your input. So we are going to be following up with this group on that action item. Certainly understand that everybody might be able to participate, because I'm sensitive to all the calls we all have to take every day. But we want to make sure that you're available and have time to participate. We're also working on identifying our technology development partners. We want to make sure that those that are interested in possibly responding and supporting the solicitation for technology development on this project, we want to be working with you, and we want to know who you are and who we might be missing that we want to make sure is at the table here as a part of this project. Corridor, heat map development, that's going to be a next step. We're going to be working on building the website, and then we're going to be developing an online heat map. So again, making sure that's accessible to everyone. And it's going to evolve over the life of this project. So we're going to be adding additional layers over time of information to really help us understand how to best use that tool to support site identification for locating charging infrastructure. Host coordination, we're now working with our partners to make sure that as we're looking at the environment of which we're going to be deploying this technology, that we're working with our utility, working with our site hosts, and getting prepared, as well as working very closely with our great partners at Southern California Edison, like Jordan and Hugo, on the SCE lab preparation. So those are some of the near-term action items for our team. In terms of working with you all, that you've committed to participating in today's meeting. We hope we can get your commitment in participating in this meeting on an ongoing basis. We are going to be working with you to set a regular time quarterly to come together, but also as we're working on these different function areas, making sure we're communicating that with you and coordinating with your schedules to carry out the meetings that we're going to need to have to get your input, to get your buy-in into those activities. So would really love to get your feedback on what you've heard today. Is there anything that we're missing in terms of how we can be better tapping you, because we want to make sure that we're leveraging your expertise and leadership. But definitely you'll be learning from us very soon as a wrap up to today's meeting, making sure you have access to all the resources that we shared today, including a recording of this meeting, and what we would like to do in terms of our next steps with this fleet needs and technology assessment for the framework. So with that, my friends, we'll go to the next slide, and we just want to make sure that you have our contact information for myself, my dear colleagues, Nate and Blair, who are going to be working very closely with me to carry out these committees, working with the overall team in partnership. So with that, let's see how we're doing on time. 1 o'clock exactly. I'm going to relieve all of you. I hope you have a wonderful day. Thank you so much for joining us. We look forward to working with you. So much good work to be done. And again, thanks for your partnership, and have a great day.
Thanks, Alicia. Take care.
Yeah.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Alicia.
Thank you.
Thanks, Alicia.
Thank you, Kevin.